We all knew that this was gonna happen eventually. When starting a YouTube channel about anime, there's a certain series that one has to eventually talk about. This goes doubly for me since I so foolishly decided to make a series on power systems specifically, which inevitably means that I will eventually have to talk about Yoshihiro Togashi's Hunter x Hunter and its iconic power system, Nen. The only issue is, where do I even start with this? You all already know that Nen is fantastic, I don't need to tell you that. But I guess this is my life now, so I shall try to go over the system and its many qualities and occasional shortcomings in an attempt to understand and unravel why exactly it is as good and functional and effective as it is. So, as usual, let's quickly summarize Nen as a system. And by quickly, I mean quickly. Nen is incredibly dense and deep as a system, and going over every single aspect one by one in detail would bloat this video. So I hope you can forgive me, but I'll only cover the aspects crucial to the qualities I want to highlight, with the footnote being that there is more to it and yet you are all welcome to read up on it yourselves. In the world of Hunter x Hunter, Nen is a technique that is used to harness aura, which is the life energy that flows through every living being. Every organism subconsciously emits and in some cases even perceives aura, however, in order to use it fully, Nen has to be studied. One can see Nen as a type of martial art-like doctrine, with defined teachings and rigid routes of study. The first step is to awaken the aura nodes within one's body, which are the center points from which aura is emitted. This can be done either by long and continuous meditation, or by having the nodes be exposed to a large influx of aura, opening them forcefully. Once that is done and the nodes are open, the real training begins. There are 4 basic principles of Nen application that have to be mastered first and foremost. Ten, which makes the aura circulate in and around the body in a controlled manner without flowing away from it. Zetsu, which closes all the nodes and stops the aura flow from the body. Ren, which pushes out the aura explosively. And Hatsu, which is the user's personal expression of Nen. While there are many more advanced techniques and teachings further down the line, they all derive from the application, enhancement, or combination of these 4 basic principles. They are the basic foundation for everything you do within the power system of Nen. And it's within the 4th principle, Hatsu, where the power system really starts taking shape. Since Hatsu is a personal expression of aura, it is here where we often find the signature abilities of many of Togashi's characters, colloquially referred to as Nen abilities. They can consist of any of the other 3 principles or some advanced techniques, but generally, Hatsu is where they are most commonly found. As to what exactly this ability manifests though, is influenced by a number of factors. Firstly, by the aura type the user is born with. There are 6 of those types. Enhancement, which uses aura to strengthen the user or an object. Transmutation, which changes the properties of the aura to imitate those of something else. Conjuration, which creates objects from aura. Emitter, which attaches the aura from the body. Manipulation, where the aura controls animate and inanimate objects. And Specialist, which essentially entails all functionalities that don't fit into the previous types. Specialists also have the unique advantage of being very proficient at all types of Nen and aura. The type you are born with can be determined via water divination and is the type you are naturally most proficient at. However, it is still possible to learn the other types as well, but you will most likely not be as good at them unless you're a specialist. Still, many users choose to learn at least one additional type to round out their repertoire. A second factor that determines the Nen ability is, well, the user. Most abilities are developed, trained and chosen by its user. However, their abilities are at their strongest if they are designed around an idea or concept that best suits their personality, like how Gon's Jajanken is based on his playful and straightforward nature. Nen is intrinsically bound to your character and who you are, so choosing abilities that directly connect to your personality, your goals, and your tendencies as a person will naturally make it stronger. Additionally, the power of the ability can be further increased by giving it limitations, trade-offs, conditions, etc., since Nen is directly linked to the user's emotion, resolve, and willpower, all of which are heightened and increased when he is deliberately put into difficult and perilous situations due to his self-prescribed limitations. So, did you get all that? Let's talk about why this is so brilliant. Now, the first thing that should be apparent is just how insanely detailed Nen is as a system. What I just explained were only the surface level basics, and there still remain entire systems and ideas untouched. What is really cool, however, is that no matter how complex the system gets, all its complexity is simply a result of more advanced derivations and applications of the simple basics. Every layer of Nen builds on a previous one. It's a bit like math in that sense. The basic functions are rather simple to get your head around, but also somewhat limited in terms of functionality on their own. However, once you begin combining them, adding onto them and modifying them for very specific purposes, you can have way more functionality for said purposes, but also way more complexity. Nen works the same way. The basics are actually quite simple to grasp, but can be used to create much more complex and functional techniques. And this makes the system feel like it was actually designed, studied, and refined over a long time by many experts and devotees, which in turn makes it a more believable part of Hunter x Hunter's world, which only adds to the fundamental brilliance of the system. When I see people in Hunter x Hunter talking about Nen and about all their little details that I could never understand just on my own, I believe it. I believe that these are experts. I believe that this is a field that can be studied and understood and devoted to for years. But nowhere is this brilliance seen better than in the actual Nen abilities themselves. As mentioned before, these abilities can be willingly designed by the user. However, writing it like this would usually create the question of, well, why doesn't everyone just create incredibly general and super powerful abilities then? What stops me from just going Zawarudo on everyone? Luckily for us, we are dealing with Yoshihiro Togashi, a genius of the craft, so this is no issue. As we mentioned before, the proficiency and strength of any given ability increases based on the limitations and conditions the user puts on it, since it proves their resolve and their willpower. Additionally, this system also dabbles in the idea of equivalent exchange. If you want power, you have to give something up for it, be it an advantage or something of the like. This means that Nen, as a system, directly encourages more limited, hyper-specific abilities. And as we mentioned in our stand video, more specific abilities tend to make encounters more interesting because it necessitates unorthodox and creative strategies and thinking. So, in a brilliant structural choice, Nen as a power system directly incentivizes the characters to develop abilities that are so specific that the ensuing fights become automatically more interesting. This way, there's an in-universe reason for the abilities to be like that. When an ability in Hunter x Hunter is very specific and incredibly designed to make fights interesting, it isn't just there to, well, make the fights interesting. It's there because the user in the universe gets a palpable and real advantage because of those limitations and that specificity. It is, for lack of a better word, just incredibly smart. But an almost even more genius twist comes in another aspect of Nen. As we mentioned, it is heavily dependent on the emotion, attitude, resolve, will, and ambition of the user. It's these personal components that get influenced by the limitations and conditions and that grant the Nen abilities their power. And that is nothing short of brilliant, because this way, the character's powers aren't just homages to their core personality like stands, or potential obscure causes for their characteristics like quirks. Rather, they are inherently and completely interwoven with the character writing of the series. A power and a character exist in a sort of symbiosis, where the power becomes a direct extension of the character's personality, ambition, and purpose. Let's look at the most obvious example, Corapica of the Kurta clan. Since the slaughter of his clan, he seeks to enact vengeance upon the Phantom Troop, who are responsible for that massacre. And this desire is perfectly reflected in his power. His Nen chains and various applications of them are immensely powerful, being able to steal abilities, heal wounds, and even instantly kill a target. On paper, these abilities are broken. However, because of his single-minded obsession with his revenge, he could only acquire this power by putting some severe limitations on them. For example, his arguably most powerful ability, Judgment Chain, which kills a target instantly if it violates a command Corapica gives it, can only be used against the Phantom Troop, and no one else. Additionally, Emperor Time, which is Corapica's super mode where he temporarily becomes a specialist who is proficient in all aspects of Nen, has the rather severe drawback that every second he uses it shortens his lifespan by an hour. So, the immense power he has is remedied and limited by it only being usable against certain people and at a great cost to his own well-being. And this is a perfect reflection of his self-destructive, single-minded desire for revenge. Togashi has somehow managed to create a system that enables this sort of writing without compromising any integrity or believability, since the characters are not randomly given these limitations just to make the fights interesting, but rather they impose them upon themselves in order to fully utilize the risk-reward system that is inherent to Nen. Corapica could have been insanely overpowered, but the power he has is only possible because he casts everything aside besides his revenge. One last advantage I want to mention among the many that Nen provides is just how modular it is. While most of the more complex aspects do build upon the earlier basics, many encounters can happen while only completely using a small subsection of techniques. This aids in making the system feel a lot deeper and vaster than most others. A single encounter or a single fight will not show off the entire system, and that is good because it feels like a huge subject. Also, thanks to this modular nature, Togashi can introduce new techniques and principles without too much difficulty, since he can just reveal a new application or combination of the basics without having to contradict anything. This allows Togashi to essentially go, "Hey man, remember that Nen system I made like I don't know how many years ago? Yeah, it's cool, but it'd be a lot cooler with some monsters. Here, have some monsters." And still be able to fit in that new addition, in this case Nen Beasts, into the system without really having to worry about any contradictions or the like. It is, in short, a system that is built to handle possible future expansions and elaborations without much strain on the integrity of it, which is insanely rare. Think of how many shonen anime and manga buckle under the weight of escalation and having to extend the power system to make the stakes higher and higher. Think of something like Chakra from Naruto, which essentially started being expanded every arc because he just needed more stuff for it to be possible. Nen can do that with no issue. It is built to handle the future. Now, while all these advantages and qualities are exceptionally good, it wouldn't be fair to only mention the positives without the negatives. Luckily, as you might have noticed, I think Nen is pretty fantastic. So there are only two negatives I would like to mention because I do feel they hold the system back quite a bit. The first one is a direct consequence of how Nen is designed. Short answer, it is incredibly complex. But Oceaniz, you said earlier that its complexity was a good thing! Yes, because aspects of a power system can have good and bad sides. While the complexity adds to the depth and creativity of the system, one has to pose the question whether or not Nen has begun to bloat out into a power system that is maybe a bit too much for a weekly Shonen Jump series, with the target audience being young teenagers. And not just that, the immense amount of detail within the system makes it very likely that you won't have every single important rule present in your memory at any given point, which can make fights that should be satisfying rather confusing and disorienting. Not to mention that Togashi, as brilliant as he is, has a way of presenting these already complex systems to the reader that can be overwhelming at times. Another issue with the system is one I already touched upon in the quirk video. While the strictly defined rules and categorizations work as a very effective structure for the system, they also make Nen feel rather unnaturally rigid. There are basically no exceptions and everything works consistently. Narratively good, but it doesn't quite convince me that it's a natural energy. It feels like it was designed by an author. And while that is not a horribly terrible thing by any means, it is somewhat disappointing. Something as natural and abstract as life energy would most likely be way too vast and unpredictable to be completely categorized and understood by a single model like Nen. So the way it is written, it feels much more like Nen is an artificially created system, rather than the harnessing of naturally present powers. Although, credit where it's due, Togashi did try to represent this aspect with a specialist type. I just think that it's still a bit too streamlined to fully evoke a naturalistic feel, but it is an attempt and a definite acknowledgement of this aspect. And as we said, due to the modular nature of Nen, he might just introduce something that completely throws all of what I said just out of the window. Togashi is insanely creative and insanely capable, so whenever he does get to actually writing the chapters for Hunter x Hunter, I can basically expect to be blown away. So, again, all these complaints are kind of nitpicky, but I do feel they need to be mentioned because no power system is perfect. But Nen is very close. In conclusion, Nen is extraordinarily fantastic, but you already knew that before clicking on this video. Its blend of complexity, modularity, and creative adaptability, as well as its heavy focus on characters and their ambitions, makes it one of the most effective and versatile systems I have ever experienced. It directly and in-universe encourages the users of it to use abilities that benefit the story and fight structure, making every advantage it gives Togashi doubly as effective, as it pulls it off completely within the logic of the fictional world. It can sometimes run the risk of overdoing it with its complexity and rigidity, but those issues are minimal and neglectable compared to the achievements and qualities that it brings to the table. It is without a doubt one of the strongest and best designed power systems ever created, and Yoshihiro Togashi deserves nothing but respect and praise for it. It is an absolute achievement. Thank you all for watching this video. I have a very quick request and an announcement. We hit 5k subs! It is insane. I mean, a month ago, actually exactly a month ago, I was sitting probably at like 100. So this is absolutely mind-blowing, but I'll talk more about that in the 5k special that is obviously coming. And for this milestone, I would like to do another Q&A. Possibly boring, but I think you're not quite tired of me yet. So I think we should do it at least one more time. After that, we can think about other stuff. So ask loads of questions in the comments, whatever you're curious about. Everything is fair game, just, be within reason. Don't ask me stuff that I obviously will not answer in a video. But other than that, anime, personal life, maybe not politics, because that's kind of a iffy thing to talk about on any Twitter, but just anything you feel that you are curious about in regards to this channel, to me, my opinions, anything. I will be happy to answer, and we'll just have a gay old time. Thank you all, and take care. Be safe. Bye.